The council chamber floated in the void, like a jewel made of glass, and Starlight, Ambassador Elena Vasquez, stood at the speaking platform with her hands shaking. She had practiced her speech 100 times on the journey to Convergence Prime. Now the words felt heavy in her mouth as she looked up at the 47 alien species that made up the Galactic Council. She pressed the button. On her data pad, holographic images filled the air above her head, burning colonies, dead children, human settlements turned to ash and glass. Evidence was clear and brutal. The Krath Empire had attacked 3 human worlds. Without warning or declaration, they had broken every law the Council held sacred. These attacks happened 6 weeks ago, Elena said, her voice carried across the chamber through translation devices. That made her words understandable to every species present. The CR claimed these worlds were in disputed space. They lied. We have shown you the records. We have shown you the treaties. These were human worlds protected under Council law. We demand justice. She looked at the Council members, trying to read their alien faces. The Velari representative looked away. The Quinn folded their crystalline wings. Only the Krath ambassador met her eyes, and there was something in his expression that made her blood run cold. He was smiling. The head counselor, a massive creature called a Torvin, whose species had founded the council 10,000 years ago, raised one of his forearms. The council will deliberate, he rumbled. Ambassador Vasquez, you may wait in the antechamber. Elena wanted to protest. She wanted to demand that they decide, now with the evidence fresh before them. But she knew how the council worked. 15 years of human membership had taught her patience. She bowed her head and walked toward the side door. The antechamber was small and quiet. Through the transparent walls she could see the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human families were mourning. Somewhere out there, the craft were preparing their next attack. She paced back and forth, counting the minutes. 2 hours passed. Then 3. The door finally opened, but it was not the summons she expected. Instead, a Velari diplomat entered. Quickly, his feathers pressed flat against his body in a sign of distress. Ambassador, you must leave, he whispered. Now, immediately. Elena stared at him. What are you talking about? The council is deciding. The council has already decided. They voted 1 hour ago. The Veltari glanced back at the door nervously. They are sanctioning Earth, not the Krath. You, the words did not make sense. Elena shook her head. That is impossible. We showed them the evidence. The Krath broke the law. The law does not matter anymore. The Veltari moved closer, his voice dropping even lower. 3 months ago, the elder species met in secret. The Torvin, the Hakish, the Quinn, and 12 others. They signed the partition accords. They have divided human space among themselves. The Krath attacks were just the beginning. They want your world's ambassador. They want your resources, and they have agreed to share them. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Why would they do this? Because humanity scares them. The Veltari looked at her with something like pity in his large eyes. You have grown too fast, built too much, asked too many questions. The elder species have ruled the galaxy for millennia. They do not want competition, so they have decided to cut you down before you become a threat. A cold ray began to build in Elena's chest. The other species, did they all agree to this? Most did. Some abstained. My people and a few others argued against But we were outvoted, the Velari. Touched her arm gently. They are coming to arrest you and your delegation now. They cannot let you warn Earth. I am risking everything to tell you this, but I believe what they are doing is wrong. You must find a way to send a message home. Elelina's mind raced. Her communication device was monitored by Council security. Every official channel would be blocked, but there was one option, a backup system that the Council did not know existed. The humans had built it in secret, paranoid from the start that something like this might happen. Thank you, she told the Velari. I will not forget this. She ran. The corridors of the Council station were vast and labyrinthine, but Alina had studied them. She had walked these halls for years, always observing, always planning. Now that paranoia paid off. She ducked into maintenance passages, climbed through service tunnels, and finally reached one of the station's communication nodes. Her fingers flew across the control panel. She accessed the backup system, the quantum relay. That could not be traced or blocked. She recorded her message in 30 seconds. Admiral Chen, this is Ambassador Vasquez, emergency code Black. The Council has betrayed us. They voted to sanction Earth and have secretly partitioned our space among the elder species. The Krath attacks were just the beginning. They are going to arrest our delegation and cut our communications. They think we are weak. They think we are unprepared. Show them they are wrong. Authorization code Phoenix Rising. This is not a drill. We are at war. She sent the message and destroyed the relay panel. Alarms began to wail through the station. Council security forces were closing in. Alina had nowhere left to run. She stood straight, smoothing down her uniform, and waited. When the guards arrived, she did not resist. They took her to a detention cell deep in the station. Through the energy barrier, she could see other members of the human delegation being brought in. They looked confused and frightened. What is happening? One of them asked. Alina smiled grimly. We are being betrayed, but it will be the last mistake they ever make. Far away, beyond the edge of Council space, message reached Earth. It traveled through quantum channels that moved faster than light itself, arriving at the Admiralty headquarters in Geneva. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen read the words 3 times before he believed them. He stood and walked to the window. Below him, the city sparkled in the evening light. Beyond the city, beyond the mountains, beyond the curve of the Earth itself, humanity's true fleet waited in the dark. The Council thought they knew about Earth's military. They had inspected the official fleet, counted the ships, assessed the weapons. They had decided humanity was manageable. They had no idea about the other fleet, the real fleet, the one humanity had been building in secret since the day they joined the Council. Hundreds of warships constructed in hidden shipyards beyond Neptune, using technology the Council had never shared, designed with tactics the Council would consider barbaric. Admiral Chen had hoped they would never need it. He had prayed that humanity's paranoia was unfounded, but he had also learned something from human history. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. He activated his command console and entered the authorization code Alina had sent across human space. Military commanders received the signal, the code that meant everything had changed, the code that released them from all restrictions. Phoenix Rising. The Admiral looked up at the stars and spoke softly. You wanted to see what humanity becomes when cornered. You're about to find out. In the darkness beyond Neptune, running lights began to activate, one by one like predators. Opening their eyes, the warships of Earth's hidden fleet came to life. 20 years earlier, the first alien ship had arrived in Earth's orbit. The world had watched in wonder and fear as the Torvan delegation descended to the United Nations building. They came with promises of peace, offers of membership in the Galactic Council, and access to technologies beyond human dreams. The politicians had smiled and signed the treaties. The scientists had celebrated. The common people had danced in the streets, but in a classified meeting room deep beneath Geneva, a different conversation was happening. I don't trust them, General Chen had said. He was younger then, only a colonel, but his eyes were already hard with suspicion. They are too friendly, too eager to bring us into their club. You are being paranoid, one of the diplomats replied. This is the greatest moment human history, maybe, Chen said, or maybe it is a trap. Either way, we should prepare. The others had argued with him. They had called him a warmonger and a pessimist, but one person in that room had listened. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the colonel, despite the shared name, was the head of Earth's new space defense initiative. She had looked at the alien ships and done the calculations. She had studied the power systems and the weapon signatures, and she had realized something terrifying. They are showing us their old technology, she said. Everything they have given us is at least 100 years behind their current level. They are keeping us weak. That meeting had started Project Phantom, a secret initiative known only to a handful of people across Earth's governments, while humanity built the official fleet that the Council inspected and approved. They poured even more resources into hidden shipyards in the outer solar system. They recruited the best engineers, the most creative tacticians, the most paranoid strategists. Now, 20 years later, that paranoia was vindicated. Admiral Chen, who had been promoted through the ranks on his ability to think like an enemy, stood in the command center of Bastion Station. The station orbited beyond Pluto, invisible to Council sensors, protected by stealth technology humanity had developed without alien help. Around him, holographic displays showed the deployment of the hidden fleet. Status report, he ordered. Commander Williams, his second in command, read from her data pad. All Phantom Fleet elements are active and responding. We have 247 heavy cruisers, 612 destroyers, 98 carriers, and over 3,000 support vessels. The crews have been training for this scenario for years, and the colonies under attack, New Terra, Prosperity, and Hope's End are all still holding. The colonists activated the emergency protocols. They are using guerrilla tactics to slow down the craft. Occupation forces, civilian casualties are high, but they are buying us time. Chen felt the weight of those words. Every minute he spent preparing was another minute his people died on those worlds. But rushing in without proper coordination would doom them all. What about the Council blockade? Williams pulled up another display. It showed Earth's orbit, surrounded by 30 Council warships. They arrived 6 hours ago. They are demanding our surrender and threatening to bombard our cities if we don't comply. They have given us 24 hours. They think we are helpless. Chen allowed himself a cold smile. Good, let them think that. What is the status of Dr. Chen's communication network, online and functional? We now have quantum entanglement communicators on every colony, every major ship, and every military installation. The Council cannot jam them because they don't work on any frequency. The Council understands we have real-time communication across all human space. This was the breakthrough that made everything possible. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 15 years developing a communication system based on quantum entanglement using principles that Council science said were impossible. It meant that human forces could coordinate instantly across light years. It meant the Council's favorite tactic of isolating and destroying fleets one by one would not work. Prepare for Operation Nightfall, Admiral Chen ordered. Begin quantum calculations for simultaneous emergence at all target locations. I want every Council home world looking at human guns at exactly the same moment. Around the command center, officers began working with focused intensity. This was what they had trained for, the scenarios they had run 1,000 times in simulation, but now it was real. On New Terra, Colonel Rodriguez crouched in the ruins of what had been a farming settlement. The craft had bombed it from orbit, killing hundreds. The survivors had fled into the forests, and Rodriguez had organized them into resistance cells. They had been fighting for 3 weeks now, using homemade explosives and stolen weapons to harass the occupation forces. A young woman named Maria crawled up beside him. She had been a teacher before the attack. Now she carried a rifle and had dried blood under her fingernails. The craft are moving another battalion toward Sector 7, she reported. They are getting frustrated. They expected us to surrender by now. Rodriguez nodded. Good, keep them frustrated, keep them spread out. Admiral Chen's message said the fleet would arrive in 48 hours. We just need to hold on until then, and if the fleet doesn't come, then we fight until there is nothing left. Rodriguez checked his weapon. But the fleet will come, I know. Marcus Chen, he has been preparing for this his whole career. He won't abandon us. High above New Terra in a craft command ship, General Vra studied the reports with growing anger. His species had conquered 17 worlds. They knew how to break a population, but these humans were different. They did not break. They did not surrender. They fought with a ferocity that seemed insane. Increase the bombardment, he ordered. Level their cities, show them the price of resistance. General, the Council advised. Limited civilian casualties, one of his officers said nervously. Var's tail lashed. The Council is not here. I am. And I say we burn them out. But even as he gave the order, a strange thing happened. Every sensor on his ship went dead for exactly 3 seconds. When they came back online, his communications officer was staring at his screen in confusion. Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is on a frequency that should not be possible. It is addressed to all Council forces in human space. Play it, Var commanded. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were hard as stone. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Chan of Earth Defense Forces. To all Council ships in human territory, you have 1 hour to leave our space. This is your only warning. If you are still here in 60 minutes, we will consider it an act of war, and we will respond accordingly. Frack laughed. Is this a joke? We have scanned your system. You have perhaps 40 warships, all of them inferior to our designs. We have 30 ships in orbit around your home world alone. You cannot threaten us. But even as he spoke, his sensor officer made a choking sound. Sir, we are detecting quantum fluctuations, multiple vectors, distances varying from 10,000 to 1,000,000 km. It is like space itself is tearing open. What are you talking about? The officer's hands were shaking. Ships, sir, hundreds of them. They are appearing out of nowhere. They are surrounding us on the view screen. Stars began to shift as massive vessels emerged from quantum jump space. They were unlike anything in the Council databases, sharp and brutal in design, covered in weapons that had no elegant curves or decorative elements. Pure function, pure threat, and there were so many of them. Scan those ships, Brack ordered desperately. Find their weaknesses, sir. They are not using any technology in our databases. Our tactical computers cannot categorize their weapons, and sir, we are receiving reports from across Council space. Human fleets are emerging at 12 different Council worlds simultaneously. This is a coordinated attack on a scale we have never seen. Pra stared at the screen as a human destroyer drifted past his ship, close enough to see the writing on its hull. The name painted there was simple and brutal: Vengeance. Admiral Chen's voice came across all frequencies again. Your hour has begun. Use it wisely. The hour passed. Not a single Council ship left human space. General Frack had sent urgent messages to the Council headquarters demanding reinforcements and clear orders. The response was simple: hold position and await the main fleet. The Council could not believe that humanity posed a real threat. They had 15,000 years of military superiority. They had conquered or absorbed hundreds of species. Humanity was young and primitive. Brack knew better now, but orders were orders. He prepared his forces for battle and told himself that superior numbers would prevail. His 30 ships would crush these human vessels, whatever strain technology they possessed. He was wrong. When Admiral Chen's deadline expired, the human fleet did not announce an attack. They did not issue another warning. They simply opened fire. The first barrage was not energy weapons or missiles. It was simpler than that. Kinetic rounds, chunks of metal, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The Council had banned kinetic bombardment centuries ago as too brutal, too crude, but humanity had never signed that treaty. The rounds hit Var's flagship before his shields could adjust. Council shields were designed to deflect energy weapons and slow down missiles. They were not designed for solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The first round punched through the shield like it was paper, tore through 30 decks, and exited the other side. The second round hit the engineering section. The ship's power core went critical. Brack had 3 seconds to realize he had made a terrible mistake. Then his ship exploded into fragments across human space. The same scene repeated. Council forces had superior technology in many areas, but they had grown comfortable. They fought according to rules and traditions that were thousands of years old. Humanity had studied those rules carefully, learned every convention of Council warfare, and then ignored all of it. Human ships moved in unpredictable patterns, using tactics copied from submarine warfare and fighter jet Combat, they hacked into council communication networks, sending false orders and spreading chaos. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting images of destroyed council ships to demoralize enemy crews. They fought dirty, fought smart, and fought without mercy. But Admiral Chen had given one absolute order to every ship captain. Civilian casualties were to be minimized, human weapons would destroy military targets with brutal efficiency. But attacks on civilians would be met with immediate court-martial. This was not genocide, this was surgery in orbit. Around the Krath home world, Captain Lee commanded the carrier Retribution. Her ship launched wave after wave of strike craft, overwhelming the craft defense platforms. The platforms exploded one by one, raining debris onto the planet below. Within 4 hours, the craft home world was defenseless. Captain Lee opened a channel to the planet's surface. This is Captain Lee of Earth Defense Forces. Your military infrastructure in orbit has been destroyed. Your shipyards are gone. Your defense network is offline. We could bombard your cities. We could kill billions, but we are not you. We are targeting military facilities only. Evacuate them. You have 2 hours. The Krath Military Command did not believe her. They kept their personnel at their posts, thinking it was a trick. When the bombardment came exactly 2 hours later, targeted kinetic strikes destroyed every military base, every weapons factory, every command center on the planet. The death toll was in the thousands rather than millions, but the craft ability to wage war was reduced to nothing. Captain Lee sent one more message. We warned you. Remember that the footage of the Krath home world's defeat spread across Council space faster than the Council could suppress it. On a dozen world species that had thought themselves safe behind the Council's protection watched human ships systematically dismantle military infrastructure. The humans moved like a plague, appearing without warning, striking with precision, and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. On the Torvin home world, High Counselor Brath watched the reports with growing horror. His species had ruled the Council for 10,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never even imagined they could lose a war. How is this possible? He demanded. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We have technology these primitives should not be able to match. His military advisor, a younger Torvin named Kesh, pulled up tactical analysis. They are not matching our technology. High Counselor, they are using their own different approaches, different principles, and they have one advantage. We did not anticipate. What advantage? They studied us for 15 years. They watched how we fight. They learned our tactics, our strategies, our doctrine. They know everything about us, but we know almost nothing about them. They hid their real capabilities from the beginning. Brath's forearms trembled with rage. Deploy the first Armada. Crush them, High Counselor. The first Armada is already deployed. They are fighting human forces in 6 different sectors. Early reports show 50% casualties, 50%. The number seemed impossible. The first Armada contained 2,000 warships, including the pride of the Torvin fleet. How could half of them be destroyed so quickly? On the human carrier Dawn's Edge, Commander Ock reviewed the battle reports with grim satisfaction. Her squadron had just destroyed a Torvin battle group that outnumbered them 3-1. The key had been coordination. while council ships fought as individuals or small groups. Human ships fought as a unified organism. They shared targeting data instantly through quantum communication. They covered each other's weaknesses. They adapted to enemy tactics in real time, and they had one other advantage that the council species had forgotten. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Humans understood war in a way that species who had known only victory could not match. But Aki also saw the cost. Her ship had taken damage. Good people had died in the medical bay. Doctors worked frantically to save the wounded. This was not a glorious adventure. It was brutal and bloody, and even in victory there was pain. She keyed her communicator to address her crew. All hands, this is Commander Aka. You fought well today. You saved lives with your skill and courage, but do not celebrate yet. This war has just begun. The Council has thousands more ships. They will adapt. They will learn. We must stay sharp, stay focused, and stay together for Earth, for our colonies, for everyone. The Council betrayed. The crew responded with determination rather than cheers. They understood what they were fighting for. On Convergence Prime, Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in her detention cell and listened to the distant sounds of combat. The Council had moved their human prisoners to a secure facility, but the facility was now under attack. Human special forces had infiltrated the station. The energy barrier holding Elena suddenly flickered and died. A figure in black armor stepped through the doorway, helmet reflecting the emergency lights. Ambassador Vasquez, I am Lieutenant Chen. We are here to extract you. Elena stood up, hardly daring to believe. Lieutenant Chen, related to the Admiral. His daughter, ma'am. The helmet retracted, revealing a young woman with hard eyes. Let's get you home. They moved through the station, gathering other human prisoners. Council security tried to stop them, but the human soldiers moved with frightening efficiency. They had trained for this extraction mission a H100 times. Now, they executed it perfectly. As they boarded the stealth ship that would take them to safety, Elena looked back at the council chamber. It was burning, not destroyed completely, but damaged enough to send a message. The heart of council power was no longer untouchable. Lieutenant Chen noticed her looking. The Admiral wanted them to know, nowhere is safe, not anymore. How many council worlds have we hit? Elena asked. 12 major worlds, 43 military installations, 6 major shipyards, and we have barely started. Lieutenant Chen guided Elena into the ship. The Admiral says this war will end when the Council understands what they did, when they understand that betrayal has consequences. The ship lifted off, turning invisible as its stealth systems activated. Below them, Convergence Prime burned. Above them, a human battle fleet patrolled the space that had once belonged exclusively to the Council. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak, and humanity did not forgive. The war had been raging for 3 months. The Council was losing. High Counselor Broth stood in the ruins of his strategy chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing defeat. After defeat, 38 worlds had lost their orbital defenses. The Krath Empire was reduced to defending its core systems. The Heesh Dominion had lost half its fleet. Even the mighty Torvan armadas were being pushed back, and humanity showed no signs of stopping. We must Negotiate, one of his advisors said. Offer them reparations, return their colonies. We can still salvage this. Brath shook his head. They are not interested in negotiation. We tried to contact them 17 times. They ignore our messages. They want total victory. Then we must use the stellar converter. The room fell silent. The stellar converter was the Council's ultimate weapon. Device that could cause a star to go supernova. It had been built millennia ago as a deterrent, a weapon so terrible that its mere existence prevented war. It had never been used. You are suggesting we destroy Earth's sun? Another counselor asked, horrified. That would kill billions. It would make their entire system uninhabitable. They have killed thousands of our people, Brath said coldly. They have humiliated us before. The entire galaxy. If we do not stop them now, the Council will collapse. Every species will think they can rebel against us. We have no choice. The vote was closed, but it passed. The stellar converter would be deployed to the Sol system. Humanity would be made an example of. The galaxy would learn that the Council's mercy had limits. The convoy carrying the stellar converter was the most heavily defended fleet. Council history. 300 warships surrounded the massive device, which was the size of a small moon. They moved through Council space with absolute confidence. No force in the galaxy could stand against such an armada. They entered human space at the edge of the Oort cloud, far beyond where any inhabited planets orbited. The fleet commander, Admiral Tresh of the Quinn species, deployed his ships in a defensive sphere. The converter began charging its systems, preparing to inject the exotic particles into Sol. That would cause it to explode. Time to full charge? Dash asked. 48 hours, Admiral, his engineer replied. Good. Deploy long-range sensors. Watch for any human ships. They will try to stop us. The sensors swept space in all directions, and they found something strange. Human ships were running away. Small frigates and destroyers were fleeing deeper into the solar system at maximum speed, as if terrified. Tresh felt satisfaction. They know they cannot stop us. They are abandoning their home world. But his tactical officer was frowning at the displays. Admiral, something is wrong. The human ships are not scattering randomly. They are following very specific vectors. It is like they are being herded. Herded by what? We are the only fleet in this region. I do not know, sir, but the pattern is too precise to be coincidence. Tree studied the tactical display more carefully. The fleeing human ships were indeed moving in a pattern. They were creating corridors, lanes of empty space, and his own fleet had followed them into the center of those corridors. He realized the truth 1 second too late. Evasive maneuvers. All ships scatter now. The space around the Council fleet exploded with light. What seemed like empty void was suddenly filled with thousands of objects, mines, that had been floating dormant there. Power signatures too low to detect. Drone ships that had been disguised as asteroids and suicide frigates, small human vessels crammed with explosives and piloted by automated systems. They detonated in waves, overwhelming the Council shields through sheer numbers. Ships that survived the first wave found themselves targeted by the second wave, and the third, the defensive sphere, collapsed into chaos. Tree's flagship took 3 mine hits before the shields failed. A suicide frigate rammed into the command tower, and everything went white. When the detonations finally stopped, 263 Council ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining vessels fled in disorder, abandoning the stealth converter. The massive device floated alone in space, damaged but intact. Human battle group emerged from stealth and surrounded it. Admiral Chen's face appeared on what remained of the Council communication networks. You tried to kill our son, he said quietly. You were willing to murder billions to maintain your power. Now you understand what you are fighting. We are not a species that forgives attempted genocide. He gave an order. Human ships opened fire on the stellar converter, reducing it to molten slag. The weapon that was supposed to save the Council was destroyed. We are coming for you, Chen continued. All of you, every counselor who voted for this, every species that supported the betrayal. You wanted war, now you have it. The message ended. The human fleet vanished back into the dark. On Convergence Prime, what remained of the Council convened an emergency session. They met in a temporary chamber because the original one was still being repaired from the human raid. 30 species were represented. 17 others had withdrawn from the Council entirely, declaring neutrality and hoping humanity would spare them. We must surrender, said the Veltari representative, the same diplomat who had warned Ambassador Vasquez. We have lost. Continuing will only bring more death. Surrender to primitives, Brat roared. Never. We still have 5,000 ships. We can still win this. Win what? The Velari spread his wings in distress. They have already won. They have shown the galaxy that the Council is not invincible. Our authority is broken. Even if we somehow defeated their fleet, we could never restore what we have lost. Other counselors murmured agreement. The truth was bitter but undeniable. The Council's power had been built on the belief that they were supreme. That belief was shattered. Then, what do you suggest? Wrath asked. Contact them again. Offer unconditional surrender. Accept whatever terms they demand. At least save what we can. The vote was called. This time it was unanimous. The Council would surrender. They sent the message through every channel. They broadcasted on open frequency so the entire galaxy could hear. High Counselor Broth himself made the announcement, his forearms trembling with humiliation. To the humans of Earth, we acknowledge our defeat. We offer unconditional surrender. We await your terms. Response came 3 hours later. Admiral Chen appeared on screens across Council space. Behind him stood Ambassador Elena Vasquez, returned from captivity. Her expression hard. Surrender is a privilege, the Admiral said, granted to those who wage honorable war. You betrayed us. You attacked our colonies without warning. You tried to murder our entire species. You do not deserve the mercy of surrender. Broth felt ice in his veins. What are you saying? I am saying that we will decide when this war ends, not you. We will continue until we are satisfied that justice has been served. Chen leaned forward. You treated humanity as prey. Now you will learn what it means to be hunted. The transmission ended in the Council chamber. Silence fell. Then one of the younger counselors, a Hake, spoke up. What have we done? No one answered. They all knew they had awakened something terrible, a species that understood war in ways the Council had forgotten, a species that did not stop fighting until the enemy was broken completely. Admiral Chen stood in his command center and studied the tactical displays. The map showed every council world, every military installation, every shipyard. He began marking targets. "Sir Commander," Williams said carefully, "the council has surrendered. Do we really continue?" Chen looked at her, and his eyes were cold. They were going to kill Earth, every man, woman, and child, 4 billion people. They were willing to commit genocide to protect their power. He turned back to the map. "No, we continue. We make sure they can never threaten anyone again." "What are your orders?" "We dismantle their military completely. Every warship, every weapons platform, every factory that builds war machines. We leave their civilians untouched, but we destroy their ability to make war." He highlighted 12 worlds on the map. "These are the home worlds of the species who voted to deploy the stellar converter. We pay them special attention." Williams nodded slowly. She did not like it, but she understood it. "And after that we go home, but we never forget. And we never let our guard down again." Chen's voice was tired. "This is not victory, Commander. This is survival. And it will haunt us forever." Outside the station, the human fleet prepared to move. There was still work to do. War officially ended 6 months after it began, not with a treaty or formal surrender, but with silence. The council simply stopped fighting because they had nothing left to fight with. Admiral Chen kept his word. Human fleets moved systematically through council space, destroying military infrastructure with surgical precision. Shipyards were reduced to scrap. Weapons factories were demolished. Orbital defense platforms were torn apart, but cities were left untouched. Farms continued to operate. Trade ships were allowed to pass freely, as long as they carried no weapons. The galaxy watched in awe and horror as humanity dismantled an empire that had stood for 15,000 years. Some species called it justice, others called it barbarism, but no one could deny its effectiveness. On the Torvin home world, High Counselor Brath stood on the balcony of what had been the ruling palace. Below him, the city looked peaceful. No bombs had fallen here. No kinetic strikes had destroyed the towers, but in orbit, where the mighty Torvin fleet had once patrolled, there was only debris and silence. A human shuttle landed the palace courtyard. Brath watched as Ambassador Elena Vasquez emerged, flanked by guards. She had requested this meeting. He had agreed, if only to see the face of his conqueror. They met in the council room, just the two of them. The guards waited outside. Ambassador Brath said, his voice was heavy with age and defeat, "You have won. What more do you want?" Elena sat across from him. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Harder, older. The war had changed her as it had changed all of them. "I want you to understand," she said. "We did not want this war. We came to the council in peace. We followed your laws. We trusted you, and you repaid that trust with betrayal. We were afraid," Brath admitted. "Your species grows so fast, learns so quickly. In a few generations you would have challenged us. We thought it was better to stop you while we could, so you tried to destroy us." Elena's voice was flat. "And now look what you have. Your fleet is gone. Your weapons are destroyed. Your empire is broken. Was it worth it?" Brath looked at her for a long moment. "No, it was the greatest mistake in council history. We treated you as children, not realizing you were already warriors. We forgot that young species are dangerous precisely because they have not forgotten how to fight. Will You forget this lesson, Alina asked. No. Never. Every Torvan child will learn. About this war, about the price of arrogance and betrayal. Brath's forearm sagged. What happens now? Will you rule us, make us your slaves? No, Alina stood. We are not conquerors. We never wanted to rule anyone, but we will not be victims either. The council is dissolved. Each species will govern itself, and there will be new rules. She handed him a data pad. On it was a document, simple and clear. The Free Species Accord. It established basic laws for interstellar relations, freedom of trade, prohibition of aggressive war, protection of colonies, and one rule, written in bold letters: any species that betrays these principles will face immediate and overwhelming response. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Alina said, freedom but with responsibility. You can govern yourselves, you can defend yourselves. But if you threaten others, if you conspire against the innocent, you will answer to us. Brath read the document carefully. You are making yourselves the guardians of the galaxy. Someone has to be. The council failed at that job. Alina moved toward the door, then paused. High Counselor, I do not hate you. I do not hate your people, but I will never trust you again, and humanity will never be defenseless again. Remember that. She left. Brath sat alone in the empty council room, holding the data pad. The age of the council was over. A new age had begun, shaped by humanity's fury and tempered by their mercy. On Earth, Admiral Chen walked through Arlington Cemetery. The war had cost humanity 15,000 military personnel and 300,000 civilians from the attacked colonies. Each one had a grave here or in similar cemeteries on the colony worlds. He stopped at one grave in particular. Lieutenant Marcus Chen Jr. killed in action at the Battle of Convergence Prime. His son, his only child. We won, the Admiral said quietly to the stone, but the price was too high. It is always too high. He stood there for a long time, watching the sun set over the rows of white markers around him. Other families mourned their dead. The war was over, but the pain would last for generations. Dr. Sarah Chen found him there as darkness fell. She stood beside him silently, sharing the grief. She had lost people too. Everyone had. The Senate wants to give you medals, she said finally. Honors and speeches. They are calling you the greatest military commander in human history. I do not want medals. Chen's voice was rough. I want my son back. I want those colonists alive. I want to undo this war. We all do, but we cannot. Sarah touched his shoulder gently. What we can do is make sure it meant something. The galaxy is free now. Because of what we did, dozens of species that lived under council tyranny now govern themselves. That has to count for something, does it? Chen looked at her. We became monsters to fight monsters. We killed thousands. We destroyed a civilization. How do we live with that? By being better tomorrow than we were today, by protecting instead of conquering, by remembering why we fought. Sarah's voice was firm. The council tried to murder us. We defended ourselves. That is not the same as what they did. Chen wanted to believe her. He wanted to think that humanity had done the right thing, but at night he still saw the burning ships and heard the screams of the dying. Victory was supposed to feel better than this. 10 years passed. The galaxy rebuilt itself. Slowly, the Free Species Accord was signed by 73 species. A new galactic assembly formed, but this one had no Permanent Council, no elder species with special privileges. Every species had one vote. Decisions were made by majority and enforcement was handled by a joint fleet where humanity provided 40% of the ships. Elena Vasquez became Earth's first High Commissioner representing humanity in the Assembly. She worked tirelessly to build trust between species, to heal the wounds of war, but she never forgot what had been done to her people. She never let her guard down. The human fleet was smaller now, but it remained the most advanced military in the galaxy. Ships patrolled the borders of human space. Constantly, defense platforms surrounded every colony, and in the outer solar system, the shipyards continued to operate. Humanity would never be weak again. On Convergence Prime, now renamed Unity Station, the Assembly held its annual gathering. Representatives from across the galaxy met to discuss trade, resolve disputes, and maintain peace. The chamber where they met was new, built in a style that combined elements from many species. But on the wall, behind the speaker's podium, there was a memorial. It listed the names of every person who had died in what the galaxy now called the Betrayal War. Human names, craft names, Tovan names. All the dead from every species remembered together. Under the names was a simple inscription: remember the price of betrayal. Remember the value of trust. A young Torvan diplomat stood before the memorial reading the names. His name was Kresh, grandson of High Counselor Brath. He had been taught the history of the war since childhood, the mistakes his people had made, the consequences they had suffered. Elena Vasquez approached him. She was older now, her hair streaked with gray, but her eyes were still sharp. High Commissioner Crash said respectfully, I was just reading the memorial. Do you understand why it is here? Elena asked, to remind us to make sure we never repeat those mistakes, partly, but also to remind us that every name here was a person. Someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. War is not abstract. It is not numbers on a tactical display. It is real people dying real deaths. Elena touched the wall gently. Your grandfather understood that in the end. He spent his last years teaching peace. I know, he made me promise to work for reconciliation. Crash looked at her. Do you think it is possible, true peace between our peoples? Elna considered the question. I think peace is always possible. Trust takes longer. My generation will probably never fully trust yours, but perhaps your generation and your children's generation can build something better. I hope so. Crash hesitated, then asked the question that haunted his people. High Commissioner, if you could go back knowing what you know now, would you still fight as you did? Elena was silent for a long time. Yes, she said finally, because the alternative was extinction, but I would weep for every life lost, including those on your side. War should never be easy. Crash, the moment it becomes easy is the moment we become the monsters we fought against. She walked away, leaving him alone with the memorial, far from Unity Station, at the edge of human space. Admiral Chen's fleet maintained its watch. The admiral himself had retired years ago, replaced by younger commanders, but the ships remained always vigilant, always ready. On the bridge of the destroyer Vigilance, Captain Rodriguez, now promoted from her days as a colonial Jirilla, looked out at the stars. Her ship patrolled the border between human space and what had been Krath. territory, the craft were peaceful. Now focused on rebuilding, but vigilance watched anyway. Captain, do you think we will ever stop patrolling? The young Enon asked. Rodriguez smiled. Slightly, probably not in my lifetime. Maybe not ever, but that is not a bad thing.